Hier ist jetzt der krönende Abschluss von diesem Nachmittag über Innovation. Diese 6 Leute, 5 davon haben gesprochen. Ich würde gerne Simon nochmal vorstellen. Simon Blake arbeitet an der School of Design Thinking in Potsdam. Vielleicht willst du ganz kurz noch ein paar Worte zu dir sagen.
Gern. Hallo. Schön, dass ich hier sein kann heute. Vielen Dank für die Einladung.
Gerne.
Ich habe den weiten Weg von Potsdam auf mich genommen. Nicht nur, weil ich finde, dass es hier interessant ist, sondern auch, weil ich glaube, dass es eine sehr ähnliche Zusammenkunft von Leuten ist, die ich in meinem anderen Leben auch treffe. Also in Potsdam an der HPI School of Design Thinking, also das kennen vielleicht einige lokale Leute hier. Das ist am Griebnitzsee, also direkt, wenn man Berlin verlässt, dann kommt man an den schönen Griebnitzsee und da ist die School, wie wir auch ganz kurz sagen. Da bilden wir einfach Leute aus, die mehr machen wollen. Also das sind Leute, die sind am Ende ihres Studiums angelangt, irgendwie Biologie, Marketing, Künstler oder was auch immer. Und denen geht es dann häufig so wie mir. Ich habe mir gedacht, kurz vorm Ende des Studiums, war es das jetzt? Ist das jetzt alles, was ich gelernt habe? Mit diesem Spezialwissen soll ich jetzt irgendwie in die Welt rausgehen und irgendwie Dinge machen? Nein, ich wollte irgendwie immer mehr machen. Und wir sind so eine Art, ich würde sagen, Sammelbecken für solche Leute, die immer ein bisschen mehr machen wollen. Und denen bringen wir dann eben diese Kultur des Design Thinking bei.
Habe ich auch sehr daran denken müssen, als Tim erzählt hat. Oh, actually, maybe we should talk English, otherwise Manik will be totally left out. But I had to think of that when Tim told how the interdisciplinary aspect is more and more important within design. That this is very much what you're working on. I do a quick roundup because we're a little short of time for the people who joined later who does what. Manik Surtani is the lead of 2 very exciting open source projects, actually of 3, but founder of 2 exciting open source projects in the Java world. Tim Leberecht is director of communications and marketing at Frog Design, one of the very big international design companies. Iepe Rubingh is artist and founder and president of World Chess Boxing. And Praus is director of concept, I think, at Panorama 3000, social media agency mostly, right? Okay, and my name is Tex. I'm moderator of TV Noir, and I'm also a software developer, so I'm a little bit in between the worlds. I asked all of these innovators to come up tonight or to this afternoon with one claim, one provocative proposition that they think is essential for how they see innovation. And I prepared 2 very banal, very simple situations where they could be asked to help innovate. And now I will challenge them to say how for these simple cases, if their bold proposition applies and what it means and how they would approach it. And I don't know how it's going to work, so let's see. Maybe we start
totally unrehearsed.
Scary, yeah. I love scary things. I don't know who knows Tifan Noir. This is the songwriter show that I'm doing once a month. And very much in the beginning, we invite the musicians, we invite the audience to shout some song titles. And then if the musicians remotely know how that song might go, they're forced to play it. And it's a total disaster. Like, they absolutely don't know how to play it. And it's the greatest thing that we can do, because from that moment on, they say, well, what can happen now? And it totally releases this feeling of, oh, everything has to work. And so I kind of wanted the people here to be in a difficult position. Let's try it. Okay, so I'm going to start with Tim and Iepe will be my first candidates. When I asked, let me explain the situation. A friend of mine is a furniture maker. And, yeah, sorry. Okay, so here comes your challenge. A friend of mine is a furniture maker who's very successful in the way that people love his products. He has designed, Spiegel reported from the furniture fair about his nice sofa, and he has a reasonable business selling it, but he only has so few customers, of course, because he's not a big name yet, that it's incredibly expensive for him to produce them. And now, of course, you would say once he is at the point where everything works, then he could have larger numbers and it would all work. How would an innovative process or any tip help this guy to come over the threshold? Or is there an intermediate thing that he should do? How would you, if this guy bought you as consultants, how would you start helping this guy? Maybe you can start by first putting a claim and then seeing in real time.
Wow, this is getting really complicated.
If it doesn't work, doesn't matter, but we can try.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is, based on design thinking and design, lateral thinking, right? So if you have a problem and you sort of reach the limits of your own business capabilities, it's always a good idea to sort of connect the dots and sort of branch out and see, okay, you know, is there someone in my domain or outside of my domain I can join forces with, right? Is to distribute better, to scale, and so forth. The other thing I would say is create a story. Create a story that is completely, you know, detached from your product. Something that is absolutely crazy. You know, do a social media campaign, a video. Create sort of a meta story that transcends the actual product, that doesn't cost anything, and try to use that to promote it. That's probably the fastest way to, you know, raise awareness of the product.
Okay, like if he would be the guy that burns his furniture, that would be
exactly.
That would be your approach, right? Burning furniture.
Of course, then he should make an art performance out of it or block an intersection with it. That would definitely help. There's not a so my statement was that everything in the future concerned to innovation will be made by artists.
And there we go.
And so, like, there's one thing, because his production costs are very high and his products are very costly, as I understood. Of course, like in the art world, things, you know, in fact, to make the product is not expensive, but they will be sold very expensive. So, and if his products are sold are expensive to make in the art world, there is this kind of market where you can sell stuff extremely more expensive than they would normally cost.
So he would have to position himself as an artist.
He should get a gallery, or so first do an action like block an intersection with his chairs or something, or burn them in front of the Reichstag or whatever. Create a story, call it an art performance, get a gallery, and get a better profit.
Okay. Actually, that's to riff on that, and that's essentially what you're saying, is the whole notion of artificial scarcity, right? So he could just create one piece of furniture and auction that off, you know, in a very dramatic setting, or there's sort of a time limit. But it's always good to introduce scarcity, because it just generates attention.
Absolutely. With our show, for example, in the moment that we start to sell out, it was so much easier to sell tickets from that, because everyone, I might have to check before. Another interesting example for that is there's a pizzeria here in Berlin. It's called, I forgot how it's called, but they have completely, as you say, completely unrelated. There's a huge elk in the pizzeria. It's like this size and hangs from the wall, doesn't have anything to do with pizza, but everyone knows, and they're doing, like it's called Canadian pizza, and they do strange things like putting sweet potatoes on it. Everyone knows these pizzeria, it's the one with the elk. So this is really something that works. I will get you 10% of the profits from my friend. Okay, thank you very much. The next task that actually I wanted to say something too, because I also want to help, but I think we do run out of time on that one. The next example that I would like the other three to answer is, it actually came up when Thomas and me and Yusuf and Manuel were meeting all people involved in advertising agencies or agencies in general, and everyone sighed about how difficult it is to get everything organized. They have one tool for the contacts, they have one tool for the projects, and it doesn't really match. And then if they're honest, it's actually 7 tools, because the different departments use different ones. And they both all said we would be ready to pay a huge amount of money if we had either a comprehensive software that does all that we need, or some tool that combines Google softwares with Microsoft or so, to get things working. So now my task to you guys is, if you were to say, okay, we have this business case, there's all these agencies who want to solve this problem. How do we come up to produce it, since we think agencies are they get quite some money, they are willing to spend it. How do we monetize that? How do we build a project from scratch that solves this problem? Maybe, Simon, you can start with, let's say this was something your design thinking team has this task now? How would you start attacking that?
I think the first thing we would do is that the right question? Right?
Okay, interesting.
So, because you start, I saw all these slides where the innovation process started with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the idea of doing this one-size-fits-all, or however you call it,
comprehensive
software. And I think it's interesting because most people, I guess, think of innovation that starts with an idea, and I think it starts with a problem. Then you somehow understand the problem and get an idea. So I can't answer you right now, but I would totally ask if that's the right question first.
So you would invite the people and first start understanding the problem much better.
Yeah, since I've never been in such large companies that need all those sophisticated tools, I myself, I can't understand what it really needs to do all this monitoring and things like that, and how it feels.
Right.
So yeah, I would definitely ask, what do you really want? I mean, you want that somehow can measure, someone can measure something. That's why you do it. Maybe yourself can measure something. Somebody can control something. And I would ask these questions: can you control in another way, and things like that.
Which fits very well with what you said as your thesis, which you haven't said yet. But something like. You don't really need innovation, you just need working people to... What was the statement? Because that fit very well to that.
I can't remember it very well, because it was just 20 seconds, but it was like innovation is just a byproduct of people having fun together and understanding each other. So don't try to innovate.
And in the design thinking, the official design thinking process, it's an officially defined process. And one of those steps,
really?
I think at least that's how it was taught at Red Hat, who were at one point also big proponents of it. And the first step is really this research step, and really getting this feel for what's the actual problem. Okay, so let's say we have defined it, we know we have gathered the requirements. If you were to be the technical lead of a project like that, how would you go about to do that?
Well, I guess from the context of the problem, when you talked about multiple agencies wanting to benefit from a single piece of code or a single product, I'm assuming that you're trying to suggest that they should be pooling their efforts together into building it, so that
not so much that that could be one of the features that cooperating agency can use the same tool. That was one of the features actually that people were hoping that it would be open, but it was more that they say, even isolatedly, all these agencies have the same pain point, that they don't have one software that really solves what they need.
Sure. Well, from a software perspective, there is a lot of stuff that can be reused. There are lots of components already out there. That would be a good starting point to look at what there is. How much of the problem does that solve already? It'll never solve the entire problem, obviously, but if it solves 60–80%, that's still interesting. And then you look at what do you need to do to fill those gaps, and how would you approach that?
And how would you try to understand these how would you go about to get it into this mode that you get the feedback and
Well, in terms of, I suppose your primary form of feedback is internal, right? Mm-hmm. The first thing you're going to do is, if you're large enough a company, a design agency or whatever, the first thing you're going to do is pilot it within a certain department, try it with a few people, then branch it out to the rest, phase it out. How do you actually garner feedback again? It's a case of empowering people. You make them able to edit some of this stuff, make them able to configure some of this stuff, using the right kind of tools. So things like mashups and wikis and things really help here, where people can drag and drop and move things. For example, if it's a web-based interface, then you get a feel of what they want as opposed to what you think they want.
Okay. Cool. And now the expert, finally, Thomas, you do have this problem. Let's say that someone decided Panorama 3000 gets the job to build this software.
Actually, I do not have so much the problem.
Okay.
We were talking about it, but I don't think there is like in this specific case, like taking it like for real, that there is an easy solution to it, because like people change all the time, and your habits to use these kind of self-organizing tools, they change all the time. Sometimes tasks are more important, sometimes project management is more important. And it's like this idea is a bit contradictory to what you said in the beginning. Solve one problem, but only one, but do this one good. And like this idea to have one tool for one super thing that fits all and does all the organizational job, from calendars to documents to tasks and more, is maybe not such a good idea.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And actually, at Red Hat, or JBoss, both of Manik and me were actually bought with JBoss from Red Hat, this bigger software company. And at JBoss, we had one competitor that annoyed the hell out of us because they were very successful with very little work. It's called, they're called now acquired by VMware. It's called Spring Source. And what they did is they took all these existing technologies and they made a very thin wrapper around it and made it work out of the box. And people only had to be acquainted with their nice little front end, and they really focused on the value add and on making existing tools work together. And so, especially in a flexible environment where some people do care more about task management, others more about the calendar, this layer that orchestrates services is very often a very good solution to get around having either a huge heavyweight thing that is too slow to operate, or a fragmented solution space that is too awkward to work with if you need the overall experience. Okay. Thank you for your high-speed answers. And I think now it's a good moment. I think we still have, let's see, 7 minutes in which I would invite you. These are 5 very good innovators from very different fields. So we have 7 minutes for questions to them.
This is the second time this happened to me today.
I would say you can, if it's just the language.
I would like to ask a question
okay,
to you,
cool.
Tim. I was talking about processes and innovating processes, and I saw your speech and you had the roles and the metrics. Do you have one process for coming up with something new? Like some guideline that you always follow if you have the task to do something innovative?
Not really. So we don't have a cookie cutter solution that we apply, and we're actually very proud of it because probably our designers would leave us, in flocks if there was one, if they were just sort of, foot soldiers executing one process. That said, during the ideation phase, we have a methodology we developed which is called Frog Think. Everything's branded Frog Think at Frog, and that's basically, very sort of methodological, ideation process. It's basically a very sophisticated result-oriented brainstorming process. But it's one piece. But overall, there are some elements, of course, and some themes that are similar. But there's not like this one formula. We also don't have practices, by the way. So we don't have a healthcare practice or a financial practice or media practice, because we want to really encourage the flow and the cross-pollination, basically. So that. It's a tricky question. So how much do you want to formalize? How much do you want to sort of keep, ambiguous and vague for the sake of informality? And anyway.
Or maybe we can give the question to the audience if somebody here wants to tell us about like some kind of innovation process in their respective companies which has either worked very well and is therefore interesting to share, or has not worked at all. So it would also be interesting to share.
A very quiet audience.
Like most of the time, big companies have this kind of problems because like small companies or even like advertising companies who always work on new things. We don't have products in our company. You don't have a product either. I think if you work on products all the time and you need to do the same thing, then it's really important to have these kind of innovation processes and routines. For other companies who do like project work, it's like built in the innovation process because you're doing new stuff anyway all the time. Either it's a marketing campaign or it's like some new design or it's new software. It's always new, so the innovation process is built in. So anybody here you wants to share something about innovation process? Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Philip. So I know the design thinking process quite good, and also these processes in big companies, and it works quite good. Where I see a problem is when like design thinking and open source comes together. This means a network of people develop, for example, a product, a marketing campaign, or something like that. That at the end you have a point that you share the profits out of the work. And that's always the big thing, because the biggest problem I see always is that in the whole process, there are people who say, that's my idea. That's the reason why the thing is a success. If you work in a closed environment, then it's like, okay, well, it's the success of the company. It's like an overlayer. Or if you work in an agency, it's a brand success. But if you get together, you flock together, and you work for one project, one product, and then you get off again. So how you share these, the success. And maybe you guys from the open source community, could you tell us how you better share this success, how you divide these work patterns in the process, like you said, ideation, for example, or then rapid prototyping. There are different people involved with a different amount of time also put into it. How would you share that, at the end?
Well, from a strictly software perspective, the way it has worked in the past is people who come together to try and build something that can be useful, that can be sold, either end up forming companies around it, so that they then monetize it either by way of selling support around it or various other things. And how do you decide who owns how much of the company? Of course, that is up to negotiation between the individuals involved. The other approach that has worked in the past for smaller companies is where there's a lot of consultancy involved around the software. In which case you assume, okay, fine, the software has been built. Whatever design and marketing has gone into it has gone into it. Thereafter, all the money that needs to be made after that is via consultancy. So whoever puts the time and effort in around that gets that. So you almost form like a loose group of freelancers almost. But again, like I said, that is very specific to the software part of things. How that answers the whole question of marketing effort, design effort that goes in on a non-technical level, no answer really from me. Okay. Maybe someone else can answer that.
Just added, I think no one has really figured it out, to be honest, to my knowledge. I think there's a lot of attempts, and Tom has mentioned quite a few, where there's a mechanism for ideation, right, for receiving input. But when it comes to sort of collaborative product development, there have been attempts. I think one was called Cluster, sort of collaborative product development. I don't really know what happened to that, but I think as soon as there is an IP, dimension to it, and ownership issues and legal issues, it gets really, really tricky. And you either build a huge amount of trust into the system, which works very well with Wikipedia because everyone benefits from the shared, from sharing basically, because it's public. Jeff Jarvis gave a great talk about that a couple of days ago, yesterday. But in terms of commercial product development, I think it's for private companies it's extremely difficult, and no one really has figured it out, I think.
So we haven't figured it out yet either. So where we are at the stage at the moment is more, we call it a little bit like network innovation, putting the social part in it and saying, building up this trust between the people so that we can at least go a step further. And then we have to see how we can solve the problem at the end.
Yeah. Interestingly, I think you mentioned that you wanted to reward the early contributors more in the ownership of chess boxing. And that reminded me of a model that a software company in Germany has. They have the owner is a mathematician. They have a very complicated system about how they distribute the profits among the people, where if you're more tenured, you get more money, and then it depends on some. And it's a hugely complicated process, but it actually makes them totally identify with the company, and it's very, very successful. Console, as they call it. So apparently it makes sense in this field to think a lot and come up with a very complicated solution that does this reward. And I think we were now only talking about the monetary benefit. I think very much in the open source world, it's about being rewarded by being cool. I remember jumping up and down in my room when I first contributed to an open source project, and the guy who talks to everyone, who everyone respects, said, "Hey, that was a great thing, thanks, we can really use it." I was so happy, even though none of these people I had ever met before. But it was so rewarding, and I would have killed for that, or at least give up a lot of money for that. And so that is really a big, and that's probably, you can probably confirm that really this pat on the back by someone who is considered important in that, like all these social things, like who has a say in something, who has a big word. This all applies even if you don't ever meet these people. Yeah.
Yeah, to a certain degree. This actually goes back to the provocative question that you asked me, the statement or whatever, which was, I can't remember it now, it was quite long, but it was to the effect of a lot of people think, or a lot of people liken open source software to socialism, like a socialist government, and they liken commercial software, traditionally developed software, to capitalism, to a capitalist government. Right? Now, in my opinion, they're both wrong. What open source really is where socialism and capitalism kind of intersect, and there's a middle ground. So your experience there, very valid, very true. People do like to participate for the kudos, for being recognized and all of that. But they also do it for money, and that also is a driver, and an important one. I don't think successful open source projects exist where they're purely based on people doing it for fun, people doing it because they enjoy it. And at the same time, there are no successful open source projects which are done purely for money either.
Right. Okay, I think we already have to thank the organizers for giving us a little overtime, and thank my great panel here tonight. Thank you, the audience. That was it. You can see everything on By the Fire TV, and on the, I think that there's also the videos on the official Republica website. Thank you very much to Simon Blake, Manik Surtani, Tim Leberecht, Iepe Rubingh, and Thomas Praus. My name is Tex. Okay.